It's the early 2000s. You're coming home from school or you're coming home from going out, and you turn into Nicktoons and you see there's Dragon Ball Z on. And then after it goes off, you see commercials of like Dragon Ball Z. And then like there is also commercials of Dragon Ball GT, and then like Yu-Gi-Oh is teased too, and many more other shows. So back in the day, or in the early 2000s, probably the late 2000s, like in the middle, there was this thing that was similar to an anime block that was going on Nicktoons. You will remember this if you grew up if you grew up in the 2000s, like you grew up in that era. So yeah, Nickelodeon played Dragon Ball Z Kai all the time. I think it was mostly on Saturdays, but they'll have like other cartoons on Nicktoons, but they was playing Dragon Ball Z most of the time. And then once they got done with this series, they went on to like play Dragon Ball GT. They played the movies also. They'll play the movies on like certain days, and then the movies will be on all day and all night. Same thing with Yu-Gi-Oh. They played that too on certain days, or they'll come on like after each other's. It was on a schedule though, I do remember. But during these days, Nicktoons was like, for the most part, it was attracting a lot of anime fans during that time, and that's where most people will like be introduced to Dragon Ball Z. I'm mostly like a new generation too. They'll be introduced to Dragon Ball Z, and some of the people who grew up watching Dragon Ball Z would tune in to watch it on Nicktoons. And wow, which will spark some discussion among fans within the Dragon Ball Z fan base. They will go on to talk about the censorship. They will go on to talk about like the certain movies that's airing on Nicktoons at the time, and they'll talk about the music. I've seen people talking about the music when I was going back to look at these like Dragon Ball Z errands that was on Nicktoons, and it's nice to go back and look at it because it's like very nostalgic for like some of us early 2000 kids. You gotta realize that Nicktoons is at a state where it's in a terrible state at the moment, and also stuff like this is rare to come by nowadays. So this was sort of like Nicktoons Toonami moment. I compare it to Toonami because it's like an anime block. It's when they play anime shows at a certain time, and Nicktoons did this. And I think it was mostly like on Saturdays or Fridays. It depends though. They did play old cartoons alongside Dragon Ball Z and Yu-Gi-Oh. I can't remember the rest of the other shows that used to air during this time because it's been so long. So the Dragon Ball Z aired from May 24th, 2010 to January the 1st, 2012. So it did good. I think it was like gaining a lot of viewership. Nicktoons was gaining a lot of viewership from anime fans because Dragon Ball Z was coming on, and a lot of people, you can tell that a lot of people was excited that Dragon Ball Z was on Nicktoons, because if you go back and look this up, Dragon Ball Z on Nicktoons, you will see people talking about the schedule and stuff, and it's just really fascinating to go back and look at stuff like that. It says the reruns continued until April 2013. So it lasted for a while. It didn't go No way that fast. It lasted for a while. So they said Dragon Ball GT aired from January 16th, 2012 to December 11th, 2014, with occasional reruns until January 2nd, 2015. That's pretty good. They did good. It says Yu-Gi-Oh! Aired from March the 11th, 2013 to March the 8th, 2014. So, yeah. It did cause the viewership to go up on Nicktoons. Oh, so there is more anime shows that aired on Nicktoons. Let me see. I don't know half of these shows. I remember Dragon Ball Z Kai being on there. But every time they would play Dragon Ball Z Kai, they'll start from the beginning. It's like a certain schedule they'll go by. They'll start from the beginning, and then like once they reach a certain saga, I think probably like the Cell saga, they did like start over. That's the same thing with 4Kids. They reach to the, like, I think they reach to the either Saiyan saga, and then after they get done with it, they'll just start over. I didn't understand why they used to start over all the time, because every time I used to watch it on Nicktoons, they'll go all the way to the Cell saga, and then they'll start over. But apparently they made it to the end of the series when they was airing Dragon Ball Z Kai. And like, I did used to watch Nicktoons during this era, but it's a lot of stuff that I don't remember. I do remember watching the Dragon Ball GT movie on Nicktoons. And yeah, they did air the episodes too. But like I said, they played Dragon Ball Z Kai more than they played GT. I think it was after they finished Dragon Ball Z Kai that they moved on and just went to Dragon Ball GT. And then during that time, they show like behind the scene commercials a lot too, and they would show like the voice actors talking about the series. And then like that was just a little interesting fun era that Nickelodeon had, and a lot of people like to overlook it. Most people just I don't see that much people talking about it. But this era just does bring back a lot of memories. I remember Cartoon Network having anime because of Toonami, but Nicktoons had anime also, and it was short-lived. It was not that long, but you know, it happened. And a lot of people were satisfied, even though they was complaining about how it was censored. Some people were satisfied with how some of the stuff like wasn't censored, like certain scenes. They were satisfied with the music and stuff. They was satisfied with what, like certain content that was playing, certain Dragon Ball Z content that was playing on their channel. So they were satisfied with it. And I like to think maybe when Nickelodeon bought the rights to Dragon Ball, they thought that maybe it was gonna bring more viewerships and just like make Nicktoons even more active channel, and it worked out. But sadly nowadays it's just it's a shell of its former self. It used to be so freaking like entertaining to watch Nicktoons. They had like very cool commercials and stuff, and it was a variety. Nowadays it's just nothing but SpongeBob and the Patrick Star Show, and SpongeBob and the Patrick Star Show every single day. And it's just like, you can tell that Nickelodeon is in the decline. You can tell by what they're playing on their network. They barely have any cartoons on their network nowadays. And it's gotten pretty bad. It's gotten pretty bad for like many channels. This ain't just a Nickelodeon thing. But if you actively, like, if you're a cartoon watcher, you notice that these channels are not doing pretty good, and they barely have any new cartoons coming out as much as they used to. But back to what I was saying, this impacted Nicktoons a lot, because there was a bunch of avid watchers waiting on Dragon Ball Z to come on their schedule, including me. And I got used to it, and I just used to put it on Nicktoons all the time because that would be on there. And like I said before, most people got introduced to certain animes when Nicktoons was airing them. I got introduced to Dragon Ball GT. I did know about Kai, but I didn't watch all the episodes at that time, because when I had watched Dragon Ball Z Kai, it was on 4Kids, and they wouldn't go that far when it came to airing the series. It's like they'll play to a certain route, like they'll play until a certain saga and then they'll start over. And yeah, this is one of those like memorable moments of Nicktoons, you know. I think they wanted to compete with Cartoon Network by doing this, and by the looks of it, it did do good, and they did gain some type of big audience from it. But afterwards, after they left, like a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people tuned out from Nicktoons, but I guess a lot of people just stopped caring that much. But they did stick around for the regular Nickelodeon cartoons. But I guess anime fans just moved on after it, because it really wasn't like a major anime like out there. Nicktoons stopped playing anime a long time ago. And sometimes I like to go back and look at the commercials and stuff, because it's just interesting to just go look at stuff that you grew up with. It was an interesting time back then, and that was convenient for people, anime fans, especially anime fans. If you grew up like being an anime fan back then, you could barely find ways to watch the series. There were limited ways to watch anime back then. It was either on YouTube or on television, and even then you would have to watch it a certain way because they adjust the screen so they won't get copyrighted or something, and most of them videos will get taken down and stuff, and it was just hard to find all the episodes together, the complete series out there. So this was convenient for people. But nowadays, people wouldn't understand that. Only older anime fans would understand that it was just rough watching anime back then. It was just hard and rough, and you had to scavenge. But yeah, that was the time that Nicktoons had anime. And I like to say this was Nicktoons like toonami era, I mean. And it was very short-lived, but it was memorable among like 2000s, like people born in the 2000s. Yeah, but that's all I wanted to say. If you remember Nicktoons having anime, share your thoughts in the comment section, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time in the next video.